Okay, thank you, Yusuf. I thought it was a very interesting workshop in a way that it has made a compelling case for the potential of BIM, for not only for heritage, for infrastructure, for every aspect, I would say, from what some people call it, from cradle to grave, from early design decisions to probably decommissioning. So I think the business case is there. And this is what you have to remember. This is an industry just a few years ago was not really driven by the need for information at all. Most of it was, interested in, compelling images, to sell to clients and so on. So if you just go and look at, for instance, AUTODESK website, like maybe 10 years ago, you look at, most of it was driven by delivering the images to look as good as reality. That was the main concern. But it's now aligning to what has been almost mainstream in some industries. I mean, if you take, for example, a Formula One car. I mean, it's a car which is racing at high speed in the track. At every time of the race, they know of the performance of every part of the car. They can, and even the driver. So, I mean, how much do we know about the performance of our buildings, either in real time or do we learn from our mistakes? So we keep repeating the same mistakes. I think the case for the potential for BIM has been made. But what I found very interesting in this workshop is there was a reality check as well, that we are where we are. And I think there is a need, a compelling need to have more case studies, to make a business case for the BIM for clients in particular, for people of the industry, for it to embrace it, and there were various, we heard various cases where people are just, hoping that the storm will pass away. But unless that case is made, I don't think we can make step change in BIM adoption. I think it has been, personally, I found it like a very interesting conference in terms of looking at it from a real-life perspective, a real-life case studies, and I'm looking forward to the next step. Thank you.
Just a few more words from me as well, and then we can finish.
I've just got a few things I picked out virtually from everybody's presentations. First was Zishan talking about Peter Drucker, saying there's nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. And I think that relates back to all the issues we've subsequently discussed about costs and benefits. Derek Drysdale said the key thing was to activate and to engage human beings. And it's people first, and not the technology, and it's not the process. It has to be about persuading and engaging the people. I was struck also by the suggestion that the Empire State, pre-BIM, pre-everything, was constructed in 21 months from start to end. And we've had many other examples of that sort of construction process over the years. There's evident good practice, and yet somehow we don't seem to be able to translate the good practice into our use of technology, and I think that's a major barrier. John Edwards talked about the challenge of going from asset information models, or what he called EBIM, and what you needed to add to them to make them more valuable. And I think it was just suggesting that you add visualization. And he also, again, stressed the issues of research into costs versus benefits. And we need to find a way of driving down the costs in order to be able to enhance the benefits, and I don't think we're there. Then Martin Simpson talked about the need to have clash avoidance as opposed to clash protection. I thought that was a key suggestion. We also talked about the ways we can get a clear understanding of research on investment from GIS in the context of the Crossrails construction process. We clearly don't get that clear understanding of return on capital invested or on operating costs for most of the things we do, and I think we need to do that. Paul Brown particularly mentioned a range of standards that Historic England and previously English Heritage have been establishing. And the thing I'm going to certainly look up shortly after this process, after this conference, is the metric survey specification for cultural heritage. Because I think we need more standardisation in how we get information, and we don't have that even yet. Professor Fernando talked about, showed an amazing 4D simulation of railway construction, and the key thing that I got from that was it was done with almost free software to some extent in terms of its use of the Unreal virtual reality engine, and along with Unity and other virtual reality engines, that sort, it shows how much you can do with cheap open source software and not having to go out and spend an enormous fortune on technology to start with. Bill Gethin, I think, said that we need a much higher degree of understanding and data than we currently have about the stock that we have. And I did some figures which I'll come to at the end on the sort of back of an envelope while we were in the panel discussion. Dave Carr pointed out that if we don't coordinate, cooperate and communicate effectively, we will be committing crimes and we will go to prison. Because health and safety legislation is criminal legislation and we have to take account of it. And we're not very good at doing that either, and construction teams are particularly poor at doing that. But designers bear a large responsibility for that part. And Mike Neville talked about needing virtual DNA for chimney breasts, for chimney pots, for chimney stacks, and we don't have that semantic information, that semantic understanding which we can universally apply to the information that we acquired, and we need better standards for that too. Professor Sohair talked very eloquently about the challenges of restoring Cadidal Cairo, and particularly I took away from that the challenge of identifying owners and ownership, which obviously in some countries is still a big issue, but then identifying who the stakeholders are, and I think that's a challenge for all of us. We don't actually know who has a key interest in the work we do, and we need to be much better at engaging with communities. And that then sort of brings you to what Dr. Navy was talking about in terms of crowdsourcing and getting things engaged from the community bottom upwards rather than from the top down. And I think there are too many experts still trying to impose things on the community as opposed to engaging the community in designing and deciding what the communities want. The few figures I came up with were that Bill Gethin again mentioned the need for an 80% reduction in carbon emissions by 2050 as a target, and that's essentially a universal target. It's not a target just for the UK, it's a target for everywhere. We currently have in Europe some 223 million dwellings, let alone buildings. And at a rate of new construction of 1%, we're going to be replacing them at a rate of 2 million a year for the next few years up to 2050. That's not going to make a dent. It's not even going to reduce the level of existing building stock that we currently have to the 80% that he was talking about earlier. If you take just the pre-World War II buildings, my estimate is that it's something in the order of 80 million of that stock across Europe. That's 80 million buildings we've got to do something massive to, literally to change, transform and retrofit them effectively and sort out their carbon emissions and their energy consumption within the next 10, 15, 20 years. The Climate Change Committee in the UK identified our existing building stock as the low-hanging fruit in terms of making a difference. And we haven't even begun to tackle it. And it's virtually a decade now since that information and that understanding was gained. So if we're to achieve something transformational in those buildings, we need much better data than we currently have on a much broader basis than we currently have. And I don't see where we're getting it from yet.
Thank you very much. Well, that was really, well said, summary of the whole day. Thank you very much, really, for attending the workshop. I hope you enjoyed, and it was, fruitful and productive day for everyone. So that's the end of the workshop. Thanks so much for coming. And Zishan would like to say something for the next academic forum.
So just a word of thanks for taking time. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our wonderful team. We have worked in a very resource-constrained environment, particularly Dr. Alkan Tezel, Saram, and then Qasim, Khan, and quite a few other PhD students. Yasir, who have been very helpful in arranging for. So big thanks for all of you. So the next steps include we will be doing an editorial, possibly in construction excellence in April issue, so to convey these discussion findings to the industry. So we will keep you posted on that. I think our next event is relates to smart cities, and that's scheduled in mid of April. So if you want to join in, I can provide you with the details, and then I think you can mail through the mailing list. Yeah, so I think that's. Yeah, so Phil will be running an academic forum, so you are happy to stay here. It's meant primarily for the academic audience, but it's you are most welcome to stay at the academic forum. Other than that, thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
I would then open up a discussion on, what you see as the possibilities of working together, and then I think we kind of split it up. So Autodesk Education itself, one of the biggest changes we did in Autodesk is we gave our software free for all. So for education and research, all of our software products are for free. And Calvas announced this in 2014. The reason for this is actually pretty easy, is that we have customers out in the industry who are desperately looking for people who are working on our products, like large customers, prestigious customers, small offices, like from A to Z basically. And we saw that internally, that if the software costs a lot and lots of pressure is given on students in terms of loans and everything, when you give students the software for free, then it's easier for them to access it and to gain some knowledge and music. What does it mean? So qualified educational institutions have access to this software with multi-seat network licenses for the educational institutions and individual standalone licenses. There are a couple of products which are not listed on the website. The reason for this is because some of them are server intensive. So, for example, BIM 360, Revit for collaboration, A360 docs, all these cloud solutions on the BIM side basically are available. So if you are working already with Revit and you kind of say, okay, we would like to explore further the ways to work in the cloud, please reach out to me. I can give access to those software products. Our division itself has recently been renamed into Autodesk Education Experiences, which is a little shift into what we have been before. We are positioning ourselves between the industry, Autodesk partners, and education and research. So whenever we have the possibilities, and I think that opportunity here is totally great, to also talk to professionals and also to talk to research and education at the same time. Because I think the cooperation of the two worlds, especially in BIM, is extremely important. So the more exchange you have, I think the better are the possibilities. What else do we have? We offer certifications. I'm not sure if anybody of you have certification on our products. So all of our vertical products like Revit, 3ds Max, Maya, then Civil 3D, there are certifications. Then we have a student expert program, which could be interesting for you as educators and researchers, which tries to foster and help students to engage with our software. So we have additional learning content which we can provide. We have certain activities and events where we can invite those students to. So if you have students or also PhD students who are like really engaged and you see a potential there and you kind of see, okay, it would be great for them to have a more deeper exchange with Autodesk, then please forward them to me. We have this initiative. As I said, we have general learning content, which we offer, and then we organize or co-organize certain events. So Revit user groups, Autodesk University in Germany or USA, or Revit technology conferences. This is a project which I've started last year. I don't see this happening here in the UK, but I'm just highlighting this as an example. Is that we have been seeing that this is in Austria, a school was providing BIM education, and I went into this school and was asking them, could you show me what are you doing? It's really interesting. I'm pushing BIM in my position, and I kind of looked into it and I showed it to the largest companies in Austria and kind of said, is that what you're looking for? And they said, no, that's actually not really what we're looking for. When people are educated that way, we cannot take them in our offices because it's different workflows, different approaches. So then I went to the industry again and said, okay, so what are we doing about changing this? And they offered to train the educators. So this is ATP, one of the largest architects in Austria, training 20 teachers in a certain region for BIM. So they are getting a 10-day course for practice BIM workflows, then they apply this in the school, and then they work on research or whatever together. So this is just the concept. We have the same at a couple of universities. This is University of Stuttgart, where we have Wolf and Müller and at AUTODESK partner engaged. And also in Switzerland, we have some pilots running for this. So as I said, it has been very fruitful for the companies because companies can give research to the universities, which is for them cheaper. So what's really interesting in the BIM is that you can really put numbers behind this. This is where I actually come from a little bit. So I said, okay, if you have a running process in your company and you want to do research, it's very expensive because the people working on this are really expensive and you cannot do new projects. So if you kind of put money towards a university to do this research together with the company, you have actually a better outcome and it's cost efficient or more cost efficient. Then we have this Autodesk Design Academy. This is the platform where we have learning content. So there is learning content for free for BPAC. That's what we have in there is Building Performance Analyzer certificate, for example, or basically BIM workshop, 3D printing. So little modules which you can use for free in your courses. Also, like anybody can use it for free. This is the student expert program again. So the idea is to learn, connect students, and then inspire them to be also the spearhead within the industry. The certification, so we have actually 3 different levels. So one is the certified user, which is a basic level. I think you need 50 hours of software practice. Then certified professional, 300 hours, and certified specialist is now developed. So for a certified user, there's Revit certified user. For a certified professional, there's structure, MEP, and also architecture. So it's verticalized. And the specialist exams, as I said, are to be delivered pretty soon. This is the plan to have a BIM certification, which kind of spans more over different disciplines, not just focusing on the single software platform. So yeah, this is a short overview of what we're offering. So as I said, software is for free. Design Academy is for free as well. We have partners out there. You can also for sure reach out to the partners. Partners are also interested in working together with universities, and as I said, student experts also very much welcome. All right, so this is it from my side. So what I would be interested in is, maybe we can open up this discussion is to a little bit more understand on who's using our software or who would be interested in working more with our software. We're, I think, a little bit too many people right now to kind of have it individually. So I was just, maybe sectoring it down. So who's coming from the construction industry? All right, who is from the architecture field? Okay, so is it that you guys are, or so who is offering already BIM courses? All right.
You're not phrasing, are you talking educators or?
Educators or also in the industries.
Yeah.
So
I'm answering yes to everything you're saying.
Okay, so yeah, who's from the industry here? That's okay. Perfect. And who would be interested in applying BIM methods in education? Who would that be?
time better, I would.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So, what we can now do best, I think, is really, I say we would open it up, I think, right now, because it's going to be probably more one-on-one discussions right now. Or let's say, okay, if you have any questions which could be relevant to everyone, we can answer them right now, and afterwards I think we break them up because it might be very special. Yeah.
What I'm interested in, because we teach some Revit architecture schools, but what I'm interested in is the process, thinking BIM process, not as we teach architecture, because we teach it differently, and we teach this BIM as a tool, just like 3D Max, Photoshop, and sort of. But I think it should be changed in the curriculum process itself, to have an architect who is able to use Revit as a way of thinking, rather than a tool. That's what I'm interested to hear.
Yeah, sure. That is actually a really good question. So we are right now in different projects at different universities who are having the same questions. So what we are doing, and I think this is actually the best approach, to bring all parties together. So what you have is Revit verticalizes. So there's same with the certification. So we align everything also to certification. So you have a basic Revit training where all the different disciplines are in. Actually architects, civil engineers, MEP, and also informatics students. So I'm also very keen on that part. So they have this basic course, and then you bring them up into the verticalization. So then there's a special course for Revit architecture, special course for Revit structure, special course for Revit.
So we are talking about integrated project, for example.
This could be as well. I think there's a couple of different steps. So the project coming from the architecture field. So if you have a fixed project, it really gets for students faces some difficulties, because architects always try to tend to break the boundaries, right? So if you say, okay, build it straight, then they probably build it crazy afterwards, because that's the nature of it, right? That's what they're meant to do. That's what the reason why they're teaching architecture is because they want to break certain rules and kind of test the limits. So I think there are different approaches. So if you have one product, one thing which kind of everybody works together, that's great. But then what you have to offer is a competition later on, where people can really freak out on the different subjects afterwards. So this would be an approach basically to kind of do this. And if you kind of say, okay, we have one at TU Munich, they're saying, okay, we bring them together, have a course, then everybody does something different, then they go into a different course, then they follow up with that what they're doing, and then there's totally different outcomes, or you have one outcome through the whole way. And then on the end you have to put something competitive.
So all about integration with different disciplines.
So once you have this basic course, everybody's in there. Then they have a task to do something with what they have learned all together. And then they are verticalized in the course, and then they are working together again.
Okay.
And then they are basically through. And then you can actually have them again into collision detection, quantities, scheduling, and all things. So there could be a course on top where you're having this high level stuff.
So we need to think like a vertical learning process with the 4 years, which you integrate different disciplines in the same course for BIM for practice, for example.
Yeah.
Different levels, level 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. So normally, and I might be mistaken, so in architecture, software education is really small at some point. So it's a couple of universities.
It's not that small, but we try to integrate each level with a different package. For example, first we have to have AutoCAD, then we have to have 3D modeling, then we have to have Photoshop at each level. But talking about BIM, it's different. So you have to deal with the first beginning as like a thinking tool, not just not presentation tool.
Definitely. I mean, one thing which also helps. So we have the problem is that in every faculty or everything, there's different targets, different ideas, and everything. So what we had a large customer come into a university, presenting them that all disciplines are really working together on the same project. because they wouldn't believe us. So me as Autodesk, when I'm telling them, so it's possible to do, they kind of say, yeah, sure you have to say this because you're from a software company. But if I bring them like, you know, largest customer in your country and kind of say, okay, this is how it's done, then, you know, people get more excited because what the follow-up is actually people get jobs. And that's, I think, you know, there are a couple of points where you can say, okay, a couple of people going into research, most of the people go into practice or come back to research. But, you know, how to, not just to bring all the education directly into what the industry needs, but, you know, aligning stuff together, I think is a key component.
Need the research.
Yeah, definitely.
I have to leave now, but can I have your project?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, are there any other questions which could be answered?
My name is Ala. I'm civil engineering. Come from construction industries as well. And you know, one of the main problems in construction industry is change order or variation order during construction or during the design. Implementation BIM will be helpful to control and reduce these change orders. I'm looking to know, looking for your advice about how AUTODESK can provide the benefits from our courses to control this change order through Navisworks, for example, or clash detection, or what's the option can provide from AUTODESK?
So on the software solution side or in
Yeah.
learning content. So I think the technologies which are really exciting, where we have seen the most interest in the student base, is cloud technology. So when I can, you know, say I have a Mac, I mean, my Mac is the Windows running in the background, that's a little joke. But I can say, okay, you have a Mac, you have a tablet or whatever, and you can run around, you can scan your environment, you can, you know, if I say, okay, I model this room here, and there are some problems in the room, and I give you a tablet and kind of say, okay, find the problems, document it on the geometry, and afterwards we make an error report. So those kind of technologies are really interested in. We have BIM 360 is the platform, and there we have Field, which is for quality assurance, basically, which is interesting. Then we have Blue, which is Navisworks in the cloud, basically. So it's also interesting because, you know, people can use it on their small devices and send it to their friends and everything, so you don't have this backbone problem.
Are there sessions or courses regarding these softwares?
Yes, we do have certain courses for educators specifically. So we can provide you as an educator the learning content, and you can, you know, apply this to the students. So this content, so there's this content on Design Academy, which we have is module-wise, so there's not everything is aligned to that, but there's other content where I can provide you to, you know, understand and learn the software, and then the pedagogical part would be on your side.
Okay.
Sure.
My name is Yasir. I'm actually a PhD student. So my area is to implement BIM within the architecture application. I have just wondered about because I'm trying to understand BIM 360 to actually how to use it within the architecture curriculum. But the issue what actually I found, the first one, which is just only it's giving access for 60 days. This is one of the issue, and I was wondering if even I'm going to have like a license for the student, can I have something like that? Okay, like to help them in understanding the 360. This is the first one. So I need this is the question first.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So as I said, like I can grant this software to you. So if you want to have unlimited software usage for BIM 360, just come to me and I ask. This is actually for everybody who wants to have access to those kind of stuff on the education and research part. I can give this access. Starting from H2, which is in Autodesk, I think it's July or August, we should have it also available on our platform anyway. But at the moment, we have a process we have to follow due to legal restrictions.
Okay. The other question for me is, in terms of the software, because of the architect, when they start to from the scratch, okay, I like the software, the first software, one of the software you called and we started using the PISA software.
Vasari?
Yes, software. I think you installed it now, and you create a new one for just Format.
Format 360, yes.
Yeah, I haven't used it yet, but I don't know if it's gonna give me the same.
So, did anybody else use Vasari back then or no? Okay. So, yeah, Vasari is dead. So the reason for Vasari dead is that Format was coming out. And Format is for free, but there's a pro version. So that's the twist to it. Format is a sketch software, basically, let's put it that way. But the good thing is that the geometry you create is BIM or Revit stuff. So what you do is you create basically volumetric forms, which you can bring natively into Revit. Meaning that if you have a cubus and you bring them into Revit, you can, modify the cube natively. So same idea as Vasari, basically. And I think that approach of Format 360, especially in architecture, we've been really successful. Because Revit is a different approach. So Revit, you need a couple of days of training to understand the software. For Format, you need 3 hours. Because the software is limited in what it's doing, but it's good for giving people possibilities to visualize stuff. And it's also platform independent. And you have analytical functionalities. So Green Building Studio, now called Inside 360, sits within Revit, but also sits within Format. And then you have also the possibility to plug in Dynamo into Format, and then you have the possibility to have also solar analyzers within Format. So it's actually a pretty powerful software, which had a very bad start because it came from an app. So everybody was saying, okay, it's app now going on to professional software. No, that's not the case.
But still, it's not the same function like analyzing the solar system there with the Format. Same thing with the
Yeah, so it's not the wind analyzers. The wind analyzers is Flow Design. It's a different software right now. So it's a software sitting somewhere else. But you can bring this in. So FBX is the format you bring in there. Then you simulate it there. But everything else is there, and not the adaptive component part. So it's not a Revit. So it's really a sketch thing. But with having Dynamo now plugged in, it's getting more and more in that direction. And it's just, I think, as you said, like you can for sure have my card as well, and then we can have an exchange, and I can also pitch you some ideas about that. Sure. Are there any other questions which could be relevant? Yeah, sure.
What's the policy regarding interoperability? Because I know that in most of the CAD companies like AUTODESK try to give you a full suite so that you depend on your own suite. But somebody wants to build an application around that and using perhaps maybe standards like IFC. I know that Revit export IFC, but when you're trying to then export for interfacing with like energy cost type simulation, you have to extract things like space volumes from IFC. But in field, I was wondering whether Autodesk has a policy where you try to make sure the standards are properly supported so that you can expose your software for interoperability aspect as well. Wondering what your policy is.
Yeah, I can say this actually today briefly is Autodesk is 100% supported IFC. So we are in all the building smart communities. We're actually founding in 2 weeks, one in Bavaria, together with Nemetschek. So we are in very close discussions right now about this topic. So it's a very hot topic, which is very important for the building industry to have an open discussion about IFC to support this. Concerning the question about going to Energy Plus, so there is a workflow to go from Green Building Studio. Green Building Studio can export Energy Plus format natively, so you don't have to go over the IFC stuff. So this.
But it's not. It has its limitation in Green Building.
Yes, definitely. So that's the.
Completely enforced. There's carefully support some models, but when you try to bring some complex models, breaks down because it's not complete.
Yes, totally agree with this. So Green Building Studio is thought to be conceptual. So it's not thought to be like if you have a crazy architecture building to do those kind of stuff, which is detailed to the bolts. It's not meant to do this. So But yeah, it would be anyways interesting. So if you have been using this and there you have come across problems, to understand what the problems were. Because if there were problems, what you're saying in the conceptual phase would be relevant. It would be interesting for me to understand.
Can I ask another one? Is
Sure.
another AUTODESK policy is to give more software as a service model, the future model is
Yes.
software as a service. Yeah? So that means whether you want a particular module or something you have to product, you have to license the whole software and it's a yearly subscription. So I was wondering whether that could be a hindrance for building application around that, because in order to build application you couldn't have the license every year and pay that amount, like especially for SMEs.
So yeah, there's pro and cons for moving to that model. So the pro is that everybody else is doing it as well. So if you're doing it with Microsoft, it's the same basically on the Autodesk side. If you're doing it with Adobe, it's the same. So it's the model software as a service is a very, very, very common software within the large players in the industries. So the positive aspect is if you have very short work, like for 3 months, you only have to pay 3 months. You don't have to pay a large amount for the whole software. And then if you say, okay, you're not using the software for a year, and then you need to watch the model or to do stuff for 1 month in there, you can rent it for 1 month, which brings, again, the whole cost of the software down. And one thing is Autodesk is really much interested in is that people are using the newest technologies. What we have been experiencing as well is with people buying AutoCAD 2005, for example. There's still large numbers out there who are using it. And then I often come across people who kind of say there is no reason for me to update to 2016. And I was like, okay, so I'm saying, okay, maybe that might be true. Just tell me what your workflow is, and then I can tell you, if it would have been beneficial to update maybe 5 or years ago. And mostly the answer is yes, you should have been updating. And that's one thing you have to go away with the whole renting model, basically. So you have to have people in the newest releases and can use the newest technologies, because we're really, really trying to increase the user experience. We're really trying to increase power usage. So Revit 5 or 6 years ago, totally different story to 2017 now. Just in performance, just in graphical, just in you name it, basically. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but okay. So yeah, any other answer?
We have introduced the Revit and this of multidisciplinary environment. So we have got a team of 6-7 students from construction management, building surveying, architecture. But the issue I have come across is that architects take so much of a design and time to come up with the designs that it affects students downstream. So we work on a 12-week semester. And if architects are taking 6 weeks to complete their design, the CM, and it creates a lot of rift within the students. Any ideas how to
be faster in that? Yeah, so the problem is, I'm an architect by education, so I can see this. So the issue is, I try to use software which is not meant to do design, to do design. So that's sometimes a pro, sometimes it's a con. So if, for example, in Revit, especially on the civil engineering side, when you build a family which follows exactly one purpose, you sketch everything out exactly before you kind of go into the software, because you know what the parameters are, you know what the heights are, you have made some thought about this, and this is sometimes a little bit different in the architecture field. So it varies from very different education systems and everything, but I'm just saying what we've been seeing a little bit around about happening. So one thing would be interesting is, if telling the students the fundamentals of a software, not to pick and clicks, basically, to saying, okay, in this software there's this 10, 15 things which are extremely important to know. Based on this, if you don't understand this, you cannot use the software. And then people can draft and sketch their ideas way easier. Because there's different ways how to teach software, right? One is picks and clicks, one is to take history in there, one is to, there's so many different ways. But we've been most successfully in saying, okay, this is how it works. So there's a difference between families, there's a difference between projects. You don't use you don't mix them if you don't, don't need to. Yeah. So those kind of principles, and just from my understanding, have been helping quite a bit. So, but architects take anyways longer than civil engineers for their designs. Has many reasons, because in civil engineering you get a design, then you kind of you lay there. It's harder when you have nothing there if you just start from scratch. But it's also very interesting. I'm not sure if you know Bollinger Koma, very innovative construction company based in Austria. They're actually the founders of Karamba. I'm not sure if you guys know Karamba, structural analysis tool for Grasshopper. And they plug themselves in the design concept already together. So it's not that the architect does something before and then the civil engineer executes. So it's basically they sit in the beginning together, because it's actually more efficient. Because once the architect has done his design, the civil engineer says that's not working, and then you have another 6 weeks. All right. So if you have a chance to kind of bring them earlier together, there has to be an understanding for different disciplines for sure in the beginning. Because if you say like, okay, you've never seen each other and we throw you basically in the pot, it kind of avoids them. But this is what we avoid actually with the training. So we have this basic Revit training in the beginning. This is where we get people to know each other, to form groups together a little bit, to kind of get each other to know. And then you build basically. This is just an approach. I cannot say, okay, this is, this is what can be successful in every case, but this has to be shown to be a way to bring out good results.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, I was just interested. Is somebody using actually Dynamo already in education? Is that a...
Not teaching it yet.
You're teaching it? Or?
No, not teaching it.
Okay. Are you interested in
I'm
teaching?
very interested in what's it.
Okay.
The learning curve.
Yeah, the learning curve is a little bit different. But you're using Dynamo already? Or?
No, so I'm dabbling in it, just kind of trying to get from adaptive components.
Yeah, we have good learning content for this as well. So if you're interested, this is from Marcelo. He's based in San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's his.
I know him
Okay.
from what I see.
Yeah, that's the thing. So are there any other difficulties you kind of face? So yeah, that's actually a question which would be also interesting. Are you guys in education working already together with other disciplines? So I know that you're working together, but are there other, if you have been in your education working together with other disciplines?
Most architecture schools probably have a collaborative project, but ours is where I teach is much less intense. It's 2 weeks, and there's no input from me as a CAD teacher to it.
Okay.
So, but civils and our schools are disconnected as well. So the rest of our built environment is not part of our school.
Oh, okay.
Which kind of creates that kind of hierarchical problem that you might be talking about with this. But I think there is something that quite interests me along the project, but that engagement that you talked about, that problem with architecture, is probably the reality of the situation, and it needs that connection much earlier on in the process to say what the parameters are, because you can't say that you've got, as long as you like to design and then give it to the other people. If you've got something that needs to be in 2 weeks from a design point of view, the architects need to get a move on, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
If they need to supply, if they need the front end, they need to supply it and have that connection. So it's quite, what you said is quite interesting in terms of what I would like to do at our place as well.
Yeah, one thing I'm thinking a little bit about, this is just a concept, we haven't drafted this out, but there's been an initiative actually which comes from sort of this UK idea actually, which we've been kind of playing around. The events were called BIM Storm back in the days. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with them. So if you have a competition, a national competition, which is on BIM, which is, also some key indicators given by the industry what has to be within this competition, this could be also a stimulating motor to get students engaged. Because one thing is that to have students go through the course, but the other one is like to really get people attached to not just the software, but to the idea of BIM basically. So if there is, an idea to do something or an interest to kind of come up with such a competition, I would, we will see what are the possibilities, but I think this would be very interesting. Also, what I forgot to mention is within this course structure, which we kind of have come up with, we have also certification in there. So, as I said, like some students tend to go through the course in order to collect ECTS credits. And what we did then, we built at the end of the course for Revit Basics, for example, this AUTODESK Certified User Exam. So what happens then is that people saw not just the ECDS as a credit, as a goal, but they saw it as a goal to have this certification. Because this certification is, we have 170,000 certifications worldwide, and they're known by the industry. So some industry companies in the US are also asking, or at least if somebody has a certification, they're looking at these people to be more likely to be hired. So this would be also something which could be interesting. We have a very reduced rate. I think it's about 35 euros, which we can offer for a student for a certification. So it's pretty low, except at 110 is the normal cost. So if that would be something interesting also to implement in the courses in order to, help you in your teaching support, also for the students to get them more engaged. So we have this opportunity. I think it's enormously valuable. And if there's an interest of implementation, we definitely have possibilities to do that.
Okay, excuse me. Do you have any trainings on APIs and SDKs of
Yes.
Revit?
Yes.
Because I've been working on something, and all I could find, there is one lesson on development of a plugin on Revit,
Yeah,
which is
that's-
basically just copying one library of objects.
Yeah, my first plugin.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, that's the one there.
So if any advanced level, if I
Yes, so it's not really structured. So there is a book out there which has been written by the people from Case. I'm not sure if you know them.
Case,
US-based or New York-based consultants company for BIM. They have come up with a book which is a really small book, but it also gives some indications on how this stuff works. And there's also a blog which I can highly recommend. It's called The Building Coder. Jeremy Kamek is working on that, and he's from ADM. So if you're saying, are you using the API in research, or are you?
Yes, I am. I'm developing a digital prototype, so I need that. So at the moment, I've got two options. One is ArchiCAD and one is Revit.
Mm.
I mean, your platform are more collaborative than ArchiCAD, because they are good at importing and exporting when it comes to IFC. But when it comes to database import and export, so they don't really export it. You can export it, but you can't import it. So that's why I've got, it's no option but to go for Revit.
Mm.
But there is a limited training on APIs, so that's the problem.
So I mean, one thing we can also think about is Dynamo. I'm not sure if you have tapped into Dynamo. So Dynamo is actually the Revit API.
Yeah.
And it's easy.
I've got it as well.
Okay, because this is one thing we can think of. If you say, okay, the API, like hard coding C# is more interesting for you, we can, look into if, Jeremy can support your questions. So he cannot offer training, but at least if you have like high emergency questions, which you say, okay, this is hindering me in being successful in my research, then we can forward this to
Yeah, I'm still at the development stage. I'm just wondering if I've got any difficulties when it comes to when I would, load my code into Revit API. So would you be able to help me with that, your team?
So to get started on the API, basically.
No, I am working on that side. I've got the API, but it's just when you get into coding, what I want it to do. So when if I face any difficulties, and when it comes to that, so.
So yeah, if it's difficulties where you're saying, okay, you're working with this and it's hindering you, definitely, then we can ask Jeremy to have support you. So we have the Autodesk Developer Network. That's the one people behind Forge.
Right.
So
yeah, that would be very helpful.
We have this resource, definitely. Just come afterwards over and
Thank you.
Sure. So actually, yeah, this cloud platform, I briefly showed it, but it's as I said, it's something really interesting because there is a fund behind this. There's $100 million, which is Autodesk putting forward to pushing these cloud technologies. So if there's research interest, or if there is something, it would be worth looking into it and maybe filing a proposal. If it's something you're saying, okay, this would be outstanding, which would bring the industry forward, startup idea, basically. Is there any other questions? The day is really long and it's getting hot. Okay, I think we. Oh, you have another question?
No, I can't get your cut. Is that my question?
No. Yeah, we can eventually take this offline. So yeah, then I think we break it up, and whatever questions you have, we can. No, I'll be here today as well. So please come forward. Yeah, sure, definitely is. So, we're very happy to help with our. Yeah, sure, definitely is. As I said, we're very working together.